Equals I stepped out onto the adobe walkway of my modest home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the morning sun draping everything in a warm golden hue. As I let the heavy front door swing shut behind me, I paused to take in the kaleidoscope of colors decorating the landscape. The blooming, prickly pear cactus along my path looked vivid against the rich brown earth. The sweet fragrance of blooming sage filled the air, blending with the smoky aroma of the chimneys that were just beginning to bubble with warmth from wood fires. Another perfect day in the land of enchantment, I murmured to myself, but beneath the surface of that perfect morning lay a tempest brewing, hidden beneath a mask of tranquility. I glanced at my watch, its silver face glinting in the light. 9 o'clock. I felt a tug in my gut as I thought about the meeting planned with Daniel at the cafe. A month ago, I would have walked there with anticipation, a smile plastered on my face, eager to join him for coffee and pie. But everything had changed. Memories of the betrayal burned in my mind like the fiery sunsets that graced the New Mexican skies. He had been my partner, my confidant, for the last 4 years. Yet, it only took one reckless decision, one moment of weakness, to shatter that trust entirely. I started down the path towards Cafe Pasquale's, my feet crunching over the gravel, each step echoing the mantra that had kept me focused through sleepless nights. I can't let him get away with this, not without retribution. I traced the contours of a small silver locket hanging from my neck as I walked, a flimsy reminder of a relationship that felt increasingly like a mirage. The weight of it pressed against my chest, heavy with memories I could not yet face. As I entered the cafe, a bell jingled from above the door, announcing my presence. The wall was painted a vibrant terracotta, the small tables scattered haphazardly beneath translucent papel picado that danced from the ceiling. The rich aroma of brewing coffee, intertwined with the scent of freshly baked cinnamon rolls, wrapping around me like a cozy blanket. I scanned the room, searching for Daniel, and my heart raced when I spotted him at our usual table in the far corner, the sunlight casting soft shadows across his chiseled features. "Elena," he exclaimed, his smile bright like the morning sun piercing through the window. There was a warmth in his voice that felt eerily familiar, making my heart leap momentarily before I remembered the sting of betrayal. I forced a smile back, my cheeks lifting against my will. "Hey, Daniel." As I approached, my mind was sharply aware of every detail. I noticed how his hair was slightly tousled, the faintest hint of 5 o'clock shadow lining his jaw, the way his hands danced across the table as if to welcome me back into his world. "You look great," he said, his eyes searching mine, trying to find the comfort that had once existed between us. "How have you been?" "Busy," I replied too quickly, my voice a little too curt. I took a seat across from him, the rustic wooden table cool beneath my fingertips. Inside, emotions roiled like a storm about to break. "You?" Daniel ran a nervous hand through his hair, the sunlight glinting in his deep-set brown eyes. "Same, you know how it is." He leaned forward a little, a gesture that should have indicated closeness but felt like an invasion of space instead. "I've been thinking about us, about what happened." I could feel the tension in my shoulders tighten as I crossed my arms protectively. "Thinking or regretting?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Regretting," he admitted slowly, his honesty almost disarming. I could feel my resolve wavering. My mind raced with thoughts of the conversations we used to have, the bonds we shared, the laughter that used to fill the air between us like music. "I know I messed up and I want to fix things." "Fix things?" I scoffed incredulously, my heart thumping in my chest. "Do you really think it is that easy, Daniel? You don't just commit treason and expect a hasty apology to fix everything." I could see a grimace flicker across his face, a reaction to the coldness of my words. I swallowed hard but pressed on. "You broke my trust." He inhaled sharply, his gaze dropping for a heartbeat. "Alina, what happened was a mistake. It meant nothing. I didn't want to hurt you. Clearly, you were not thinking about me at all." My voice dropped to a whisper, laced with resentment as I tried to pull back the flood of emotions that threatened to spill over. "How could you?" "I know." He sighed heavily, the weight of his mistake crushing him momentarily. "I've been trying to make sense of it. I miss us the way we were. Can't we just try again?" His voice held that familiar note of uncertainty, the way it used to when he was searching for the right words. I had loved the way he opened up to me, pouring out his thoughts like an artist revealing their work to the world. "You can't just wipe the slate clean. You can't pretend the history we have doesn't exist anymore." The laughter of a couple nearby pierced through the tension, light and airy like a watercolor painting radiating freedom. The vibrancy of their joy heightened my awareness of the darkness that loomed over our table. "Can you really say this has nothing to do with you and Sarah?" I fired off impulsively, the name striking like lightning. His face paled visibly at the mention of her. "It was a stupid moment, Alina, just a misunderstanding. Sarah means nothing to me. You know that," he pleaded, his voice dropping almost to a whisper, desperation creeping in. "Do I know that?" I shot back, my eyes narrowing as a throbbing anger coiled around my heart like a vice. What do you expect me to believe? That you were just having a bad day? This wasn't an accident, Daniel. You made a choice. Please, he whispered again, leaning in further, hope glimmering in those deep brown eyes. Just hear me out. Let's work through this. We can be better. A sliver of doubt wormed its way into my chest, combining with the anger, creating a tumultuous swirl of emotions. Better? How? I demanded, my voice rising slightly. By you lying to my face and betraying everything we built together? Okay, I messed up. I know it was stupid, I just want one more chance. His voice dropped lower now, a tone inviting intimacy, sorrow spilling over like ink on parchment. I am begging you, Alina. As I looked into his eyes, pleading for forgiveness, I felt my defenses softening. He had always known how to weave his words, how to manipulate emotions. But now, a thought struck me, a chilling reminder of why I was here. You talk a lot, Daniel, but I think our history, and what you so casually threw away, speaks louder than any words you can say. The silence that stretched out between us felt like a chasm, filled with all the things we hadn't said, all the feelings we had yet to process. His face fell, shadowed by a hint of regret that I hadn't recognized before. I felt a sharp pang of sympathy but willed myself to harden my heart again, to remember the nights spent crying, wondering what was wrong with me instead of him. I know I hurt you, he said finally, his voice a cracking whisper. But I want to make it up to you. No one else could ever mean what you mean to me. What you said last time means nothing now, I replied, the chill in my tone emphasizing my rejection. You think those words can take away the pain? You cannot fix this with empty gestures. His shoulders slumped as he shifted in his chair, body displaying the defeat gnawing at him. I know I don't deserve it, but… Daniel, stop. I interrupted harshly, emotion bursting forth like a sudden gust of wind, fierce and unyielding. The truth is, it's too late. I've spent weeks struggling to get over the betrayal. I can't just hop back into a relationship that feels like a lie. Not now, not ever. His expression shifted from desperation to an aching resignation that cut through me like a knife. I felt momentarily bitter, victory washing over me as his world collapsed before his eyes. You think that by saying these things, you're going to push me away and I will disappear? That I will magically find someone else and forget you? That's what you deserve, I shot back, the fire in my voice matching the flames licking inside. He blinked slowly, a painful silence enveloping the air. Do you really feel that way? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Beneath the anger, I felt a wave of sorrow that dipped like a dark cloud looming over us. I was about to pour my heart out when suddenly I remembered my purpose here. It wasn't about rekindling something broken. No, I had something far more potent swirling within me, a burning desire for revenge. No, I finally said softly, a resolution hardening my voice. I believe you deserve to feel the way I felt. Betrayed, broken, lonely. I leaned in closer, looking deep into his eyes as I searched for any sign of understanding. This is not a game anymore, Daniel. There's a price to pay for your choices. What do you mean? His voice was trembling, confusion etched on his features. I took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon, which usually brought comfort, but now? Now they tasted like bitterness, memories tainted by betrayal. Everything has a consequence. You wanted to hurt me, and I assure you, I will make sure you feel what this has done to us. Is this what you want? He whispered, barely audible, those familiar depths wavering in fear. It's not about what I want anymore, I replied, an icy calmness filling me as the resolve coalesced into something powerful, something dark. It's about what you deserve. You hurt me. I will make sure you understand what that means. As I stood to leave, an unsettling peace washed over me. I could hear the faint tumult of the cafe behind me, laughter and clinking plates blending into a cacophony of life. Drawing a thin breath, I glanced back at him, lost, broken, haunted by the specter of his choices. And for the first time, I felt empowered by the knowledge that I held the reins of this unraveling, aware that this was just the beginning. I stepped into the sunlight, the warmth enveloping me like a snare, as I walked away from the wreckage, intent on carrying out my plans. A storm gathering just beyond the horizon, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over my small kitchen in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I stood by the counter, staring out the window as the shadows of the mountains crept slowly over the horizon. Each passing moment felt like a beat of a drum echoing in my mind, reminding me of the next move I had to make in this elaborate dance of revenge that I had set into motion. I took a deep breath, letting the intoxicating scent of coffee fill my lungs, as if it might somehow fortify my resolve. I had always taken my coffee black, just like my thoughts lately, undiluted and bitter. I absently stirred honey into the steaming cup, my mind racing through the endless possibilities of how I could make him pay. It was a delicate balance, this plotting of mine, a mixture of careful planning and raw emotion. With every sip, I could almost taste all the anger, betrayal, and heartache that had led me to this point. This was more than just a simple plan, it was a commitment to myself and to my own sense of justice. I thought back to the day everything changed, the day I had discovered the truth about Derek. A sense of mortification washed over me as I recalled the moment I had walked in on him with her, my so called best friend, Sarah. My heart had shattered in an instant, fragments of it echoing in my chest like broken glass. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, I was blissfully unaware of the reality lurking behind those intimate smiles they shared. I can't believe I actually thought they loved me, I whispered to the empty kitchen, my fingers curling tightly around the warm ceramic. Scoffing at my own naivety, I flung the mug down on the counter, the clatter ringing through the silence. The coffee sloshed over the edge and stained the countertop, just like the remnants of my trust had stained my heart. I had a plan brewing now, and every detail mattered. The clock ticked away, signaling that it was time to put it into action. Loud footsteps cut through my thoughts, followed by the jingle of keys and the sound of the front door opening. "Elena?" I heard my mother's voice echo through the hallway. Her bright, cheerful tone was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. "Are you home? I brought you your favorite." The aroma of freshly baked enchiladas jutted through the air, clashing with the bitterness of my coffee, pulling me back to reality. I forced a smile, instinctively brushing off any signs of my inner turmoil before she stepped into the kitchen, blissfully unaware of the war waging in my heart. "Hey, Mom, you didn't have to," I began, but her excited energy was already filling the room. She placed the warm dish on the table, her hands expertly maneuvering to present the food as if it were a masterpiece. Each tortilla layered with cheese and sauce elicited a warm, nostalgic feeling that was almost comforting, despite the chaos of my thoughts. "Nonsense, you have to eat. I worry about you, sweetie. Life has been so hard on you lately." She pulled out a chair and sat across from me, studying my face. I felt a flash of guilt wash over me as I realized I wasn't the only one impacted by Derek's betrayal. My mother was still reeling from the effects of my heartbreak. I should have poured my heart out to her, shared my struggles and frustrations, but instead I was burdened with secrets and plans that held no place in her compassionate heart. "Okay, Mom." "Really?" I replied, forcing the words past my lips. Even I did not believe myself as I said it. "Just busy, work is hectic." I could see the worry etched on her features, but I quickly changed the subject. "So, how is Dad? He enjoying his retirement?" "Well, you know your father. He is still figuring out how to take it easy. I caught him trying to fix the car the other day. I thought we agreed he was done with that." She chuckled softly, her laughter a gentle melody that contrasted sharply with the chaos inside me. The familiar banter between us flowed naturally, and for a moment I thought about letting my guard down. Maybe I could confess everything, that I had developed a desire for revenge that would consume my existence. But before I could voice my true feelings, my phone buzzed on the table, pulling my attention away. I glanced at the screen and saw Derek's name flash across it. A wave of disgust surged through me, and I quickly swiped the phone away, hiding it under a pile of napkins. Just a spam message," I said, biting my lip as I fought the urge to scream at the phone. My mom raised an eyebrow but chose not to press the issue. Instead, she resumed talking about her day, and I found myself smiling warily, thinking about how no one could have prepared me for the intense emotions of betrayal and rage I felt. Once I finished my meal, I excused myself to clean up, my mind racing once again toward my plan. I needed to devise a strategy that would allow me to execute my revenge without being caught. Reenacting Derek's betrayal in a theatrical way seemed to be in order. I could use the element of surprise to make my point. As I rinsed the plates under hot water, I envisioned confronting him, making him feel the pain he had caused me, as palpable as the suds sliding off my hands. It was my turn to take charge. There was an urgency mounting within me to finally put my plan into action, to no longer be the passive victim, but the active architect of my own fate. I stood lost in thought, the water still running, when out of nowhere I felt a sudden rush of courage. I could feel my heart racing, the adrenaline pumping in my veins. I needed to gather information, understand his weaknesses, learn his patterns. Derek had never been particularly cautious or discreet. I remembered how he would always leave his phone unattended, the way he glued his attention to the screen when he thought I wasn't looking. And just like that, I had an avenue to explore. Once I finished drying the last dish, I felt somewhat lighter even though the burden of revenge still loomed large. I needed allies. It was time to dig into my former life and the friendships I thought I had lost. Sarah, that traitorous friend of mine, she wouldn't have realized it, but I knew I already had people who still cared about me, friends who could help me turn the tables. I grabbed my purse, shouldering it with purpose as I headed out of my apartment. "Where are you going, honey?" my mother asked, looking up from the table. "Just for a quick walk, some fresh air," I said, my voice steady as I turned to step out the door. The cool air embraced me outside, a sharp contrast to the close warmth of the kitchen. I looked up and observed the expansive sky shimmering with hues of pink and orange as the sun dipped lower. It was a breathtaking view, a fickle beauty that reminded me how life could be both enchanting and cruel. The familiar route to the cafe felt like a pilgrimage. The gravel crunched beneath my boots, and I could feel the cobwebs in my mind slowly clearing away. As I walked, I thought of Derek, the laughter we shared, our inside jokes, the future we had envisioned together. All were tainted now, just remnants of a life built on lies. I fought back tears, the emotional weight almost too heavy to carry. Arriving at the cafe, the warm light spilled out onto the street, the chatter of patrons blended with the sound of steaming milk and roasted beans. My heart raced as I pushed the door open, the bell jingling a soft welcome. A smile spread across my face when I spotted my old friend Mia, sitting in the corner by the window, her vibrant red hair catching the afternoon light. She waved energetically, her eyes shining with unspoken enthusiasm. "Alina," she called, and I felt a spark of joy at her warm greeting. As I approached, I hugged her tightly, inhaling the comforting scent of her familiar perfume, a blend of vanilla and citrus that seemed to brighten my mood. "It has been ages, I missed you." "I know, life has just been crazy," I said, taking a seat across from her. "How have you been?" Mia leaned closer, her excitement palpable. "You wouldn't believe the amazing things happening in my life. I'm doing freelance graphic design now, and I've even landed a few big clients." "Wow, that is impressive," I exclaimed, genuinely happy for her. As she recounted her recent successes, I suddenly felt a pang of jealousy. Here I was, still stuck in the quicksand of my own misery. But no, this wasn't about comparing lives. It was about reconnecting with someone who genuinely cared about my well-being. "So," she said, leaning back with a sly smile, "you look like you have something on your mind. Spill it." I hesitated for a moment, my heart racing as I thought about how to broach the subject without sounding completely unhinged. "Well, I've been going through some stuff," I finally admitted, my voice shaky. "Derek and Sarah, they betrayed me, I just found out." Mia's cheerful expression dropped, shock replacing her previous excitement. "Oh no, Alina, I am so sorry to hear that. That's awful," she exclaimed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Yeah, it's kind of turned my world upside down," I said, feeling warmth and gratitude for her support. "I am trying to figure out what to do next, and truthfully, I am leaning toward making them pay." The seriousness in her eyes deepened as she listened intently. "What do you mean, make them pay?" she asked softly, concern lacing her words. "I mean, I want to show them that what they did hurts," I replied, my heart racing as I confessed my intentions. "I want my revenge. I need them to understand that they cannot just do this and get away with it." "Revenge can be a slippery slope, Alina," she warned carefully, her voice low. "Have you really thought this through?" "For too long now," I confessed, my gut twisting as I recalled all the pain. "Every time I see them together, it feels like a dagger to the heart. It eats away at me. I don't want to be the victim anymore." Mia nodded, her brow furrowed as she studied my face, searching for the signs of doubt. "Talk to me about your plan then. How do you envision this going down?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, a hint of frustration creeping into my voice. "But I see them in my mind's eye, and I just want them to realize how much they've destroyed." "From how you talk about it, it seems to be consuming you," she pointed out gently. "I mean, I understand the desire to feel justified, but is this really what you want? Is revenge worth potentially losing who you are?" I felt the weight of her words settle into my chest. She was right. I had never considered how revenge might change me. Wasn't I just trying to protect what little dignity I had left? "I just feel so lost," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to hurt God knows how many people in the process. I just want to reclaim my life." Mia leaned closer, her voice firm yet kind. "Then reclaim it in a way that honors you. Think about how you want to be remembered in this situation. It's easy to lash out, but is that really you? Would that be the person you want to be?" I felt a mixture of gratitude and resentment toward her words, a part of me appreciating her perspective while another part recoiled at the implication that I should simply let it go. "But I can't just sit back and let them win," I said, my tone sharp. "They need to understand the consequences of their actions. People shouldn't get away with hurting others without feeling the repercussions." Mia sighed, her expression softening. "I get it, I really do. You're in pain, and you want the world to see that, but please make sure it doesn't consume you. Explaining your hurt to them is a step toward healing, but revenge could just lead to more pain." In that moment, I saw clarity through the tangled mess of emotions. I was fierce enough to want revenge, but I also had the power to redirect that energy into something that could ultimately heal rather than harm. Though it was still a painful journey, perhaps I could transform my anger into empowerment instead. My heart settled slightly, realizing that I could still get my revenge without losing myself in the process. "Thank you, Mia. I appreciate your honesty." "Maybe I'm just so blinded by rage that I lost sight of who I am," I conceded softly, and as I spoke those words, I felt a part of the weight lift. "I'll figure it out, I will." "Good," she said with a soft smile, seemingly relieved. "You have a strong spirit, Alina. Don't let them dim your light. We spoke about lighter topics for the remainder of our time at the cafe, and I found comfort in the familiar rhythm of our friendship. I left determined, feeling that even if revenge still simmered in the background, I could channel it towards something more constructive. The sun was setting, casting a radiant glow on Santa Fe's adobe buildings, and for the first time in a long while, light began to pierce through my darkness. I knew I would face my problem head on, but I would do it in a way that reflected the person I truly wanted to be. The air in my small studio apartment felt dense, thick with anticipation and regret as I stared at the wall covered in scribbled notes, photos, and newspaper clippings. Each piece told a story, but all of them converged into one relentless goal: revenge. The simmering anger inside me twisted my gut, mixing with a sense of dread. I had crossed lines that I had once vowed I would never cross. Yet here I was, on the precipice of an irreversible act that could forever change who I was. I took a deep breath and moved towards the mirror hanging across from me, my own reflection staring back with a mix of defiance and despair. Long, dark hair framed my face, and I could almost see the intensity in my hazel eyes piercing through the swarm of uncertainty. Would it really come to this? My heart pounded as I remembered the first time I had seen Mark Collins, the man who had betrayed me. He stood tall and imposing, that clever smirk always gracing his lips. The sound of his laughter still echoed in my ears as I recalled the night I first thought I could trust him. The betrayal still felt like a knife twisting in my back. "Okay, Alina," I muttered to myself, pacing the floor, my fingers twitching with nervous energy. "If I'm going to do this, I need to plan it right." The thought of confronting him made my skin itch with both excitement and fear, but it was now or never. I couldn't live in this limbo any longer. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, jolting me from my thoughts. I stepped over to grab it, my heart racing when I saw the name on the screen. It was Sophia, my closest friend, who had no idea about the whirlwind of vengeful thoughts that filled my head. I hesitated, contemplating whether to pick up. Deep down, I craved normalcy, even if it was fleeting. "Hey," I answered, trying to keep my voice light. "Did I catch you at a bad time? You sound intense," Sophia said, her tone betraying genuine concern. "Just going through some stuff. You know how life can get," I replied, forcing a smile even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, tell me about it, but seriously, let's grab a coffee or something. I need to see you. I miss our girl time," she gushed. "Sure, I'd like that," I lied, but my mind was racing, and I had no time for a distraction, especially one that could lead to further questioning about my dark intentions. "Actually, how about I come to you? I'll bring some pastries from that bakery you love." "Ooh, now you're speaking my language. Okay, I'll see you soon. Just be careful, all right?" There was concern in her voice, and it tugged at my heart. "I will. Promise," I said, even though I felt like a liar. The moment I hung up, I grabbed my coat and slammed the door behind me, determination fueling each step I took. The world outside was alive with the bustle of Santa Fe, children playing, vendors hawking their wares at a nearby marketplace, and the aroma of roasted green chilies wafting through the air. I soaked it all in, but my heart felt like stone, heavy and cold. As I walked toward the local bakery, I stared at the ground, regretting every decision I had made that had brought me here. Every turn I took led me back to Mark. It was bewildering how one person could have such an impact on the tapestry of my life. He had once been my friend, my confidant, but now he was my enemy, lurking at the edge of my mind like an unwanted ghost. "Hey, Alina," a voice called out, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked up to see an old acquaintance, David, walking toward me with an excited grin. We had always been friendly, just two people passing through the same social circles. "It's been ages." "How have you been?" "Oh, just living the dream," I replied lightly, but inside I was still drowning in darkness. "Right, well, if that dream involves refusing to return my phone calls, we need to set the record straight." He chuckled, and I couldn't help but smile, even if it was momentary. "Sorry about that, life has just been crazy," I said, trying to brush off the truth. "Crazy is one word for it," David laughed. "You still doing that art thing? I saw your pieces in the gallery downtown." "They are incredible, truly. You've got such talent." "Thanks, I'm just trying to keep my head above water," I admitted, but the weight of my intent threatened to devour me. "I'm on my way to pick up some pastries before meeting a friend." "Nice, I'll let you go, but seriously, don't be a stranger. Call me sometime. We should grab a drink," he suggested, and with that, we exchanged goodbyes. His warmth reminded me of the life I used to enjoy before everything turned upside down. As I stepped into the bakery, the sweet smell of cinnamon and sugar enveloped me, a stark contrast to the bitterness I had been feeling. The bell above the door jingled softly as I walked in. I found myself standing in front of the glass display, eyeing the golden pastries arranged so invitingly. "Hi there, what can I get for you?" The cheerful voice of the cashier snapped me from my daze. "Just a dozen of your finest pastries, please. Whatever looks best today," I replied, forcing a smile. "Absolutely." "Coming right up," she beamed at me as she began to gather the treats. I stood there, wondering if I truly deserved a moment of sweetness after everything that had happened. Did I really think I could pull off this plan without consequence? After I paid, I exited the bakery, taking a deep breath of the crisp air outside. It was all so normal, yet I was about to do something twisted and dark. As I walked towards Sophia's place, my phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. I hesitated again, instincts urging me not to answer, but my curiosity got the better of me. Hello, I answered, trying to keep my tone steady. Alina Callahan. The voice on the other end was low, almost gravelly, and I felt a shiver down my spine. You think you can hide from the past? Trust me, it finds you. What? Who is this? I snapped, but the line went dead. My heart raced, and I felt a coldness sweep over me. Had Mark sent someone? Or was it a strange coincidence? I shook my head, trying to clear the haze swirling in my mind. I could not let myself fall deeper into paranoia. When I finally reached Sophia's apartment, I knocked lightly on the door. She opened it almost instantaneously, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a smile bursting onto her face. "Elena, you made it," she exclaimed, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Of course, I wouldn't leave you waiting," I replied, hoping the warmth of her affection would keep the chill creeping through my heart at bay. "So, what sweet treasures did you bring me?" Sophia teased, eyeing the bag in my hands. "A little surprise, you'll love them," I said, my voice light as I pulled out the pastries and set them on the table. "Oh wow, they look amazing," she said, her eyes sparkling as we sat down. We spent the next hour chatting about everything else but the storms brewing in my life. As Sophia talked about her new painting classes, I found myself lost in her enthusiasm, even if a part of me was still grappling with what I was about to do. "Hey, so what's been going on with you? I feel like it's been forever since we caught up on life," she asked, concern lurking just beneath her bubbly exterior. "Oh, you know me, just busy with art and trying to figure things out," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Same old, same old. Maybe you need to come out with me more. I have a couple of friends from my classes that would love to meet you. We could all go out next Friday. What do you think?" she asked excitedly. I hesitated, feeling the walls around me crumbling. The enticing offer of normalcy echoed in my head yet felt like a lifetime away. "Definitely sounds fun," I said, but my internal voice whispered darkly that I could not let myself get too comfortable. Mark was everywhere, lurking like a shadow poised to strike. "Great, I'll text you details later. Just promise me this, you are not going to let whatever you are going through keep you from enjoying life," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. A laugh escaped my lips, but it felt more like a broken sound than genuine joy. "I promise," I said, knowing that I was inching closer to the point of no return, approaching a crossroads where nothing would ever be the same again. The clock ticked away on the wall, each passing second amplifying the urgency inside me. It was now or never. And no amount of pastries and warm conversation would change what I needed to do. "I should head out soon," I said abruptly, my heart racing again. "I've got an errand to run." "An errand at this hour?" Sophia inquired, a frown creasing her brow. "Just something I've got to take care of. I'll call you later, okay?" The lie rolled off my tongue too easily, and as I grabbed my coat, I forced myself to stand tall. "All right, but you owe me more time soon." "We need our chats," she said, and I felt the warmth of her affection, eager to trap me in its bubble. "I will, I promise," I replied, but I felt hollow as I stepped outside into the cool night, my heart pounding harder against my ribs, echoing the truth buried within. I was stepping into the dark, and there was no turning back now. My senses sharpened as the streets wound around me, the vibrant colors of the setting sun casting elongated shadows that danced along the pavement. Each step I took steeled my resolve, leading me where I had dreaded to go. It was time to confront the man who had torn my world apart, the man who had betrayed me with a smirk on his face. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. Revenge was calling, and I was finally ready to answer as dawn's first light peeked through the dusty slats of my bedroom blinds. I slid from the cocoon of my blankets. A chill hung in the air of my Santa Fe home, where I had spent countless nights planning, dreaming, and now preparing for the culmination of my revenge. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the reflection of the woman I once was, a woman supplanted now by fury and purpose. My hair was tousled, and my eyes, usually bright and revealing some core of kindness, now burned with a fierce determination that felt foreign but exhilarating. "Today is the day," I whispered, steeling my resolve as I splashed cold water on my face. The droplets cascaded down like the effervescence of my revenge plan, each one a reminder of the betrayal that still simmered in my heart. As I brushed my teeth, the taste of minty toothpaste felt bitter, a sharp contrast to the sweetness of the revenge I sought. I glanced at my phone. It was 7:30. The air was filled with the promise of the day ahead. The plan was in motion, and the first piece hinged on me meeting him. Oliver, the man who had everything and had taken everything from me. I slipped on a navy turtleneck, grounding myself in its familiarity, as I recalled sweet moments from when Oliver and I first met. The days when he would compliment me, the nights he would pull me close, whispering charming promises that now lay shattered like glass around my feet. Part of me could still hear his laughter, but most importantly, I could see the face of betrayal, the way his lips had curled into a smirk when I found out about his deceit. I clenched my fists, blood pounding in my ears. Once a thief, always a thief, I muttered, remembering how he had stolen more than just my trust. He had stolen the life I was beginning to build for myself. Every detail of our planned confrontation played like a sinister movie reel in my mind, flickering images of the coffee shop, where we'd first discussed dreams of the future. I would force him to hear me, to understand the extent of the damage he had wrought. Today, he would face the woman he thought he could manipulate without consequence. I drove through the streets of Santa Fe, the morning sun lighting up the adobe buildings and casting long shadows on the pavement. The faint scent of roasting chili peppers wafted from the nearby market, mixing with the earthy aroma of the freshly paved asphalt. My heart raced with each turn of the wheel, anticipation and dread twining like a noose around my throat. I could visualize the coffee shop, an unassuming place with rustic wooden beams and a menu that promised artisanal blends. It was brilliant, really. We're better to enact this moment than the place where our worlds had collided so beautifully. When I stepped inside, the smell of coffee hit me like a wave, grounding me in my determination. The muted chatter of morning patrons buzzed around the room, a mix of laughter and casual morning greetings that only heightened the sharpness of my resolve. My fingers grazed the smoothness of the counter as I ordered my coffee, a strong black blend that mirrored the bitterness I felt inside. I managed to nod a polite thank you to the barista, but my attention was glued to the door, waiting, always waiting. Minutes dragged into an eternity, and I fought the urge to pace, my foot tapping against the scuffed floor. The bell above the door jingled softly, prompting my head to snap toward it. And then I saw him, Oliver, in a crisp white shirt that clung to his athletic frame like a second skin, looking utterly composed as he stepped inside, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface of my calm exterior. "Elena," he called out, his voice dripping with the charm he always wielded like a weapon. His golden hair fell perfectly into place, and for a brief moment I almost forgot the turmoil he had caused. Almost. "Oliver," I replied, my voice steady but cool. A smile graced his lips as he approached, and he wrapped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me in like an old friend. My body stiffened, repulsed by the very touch that once felt safe. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, but I pushed my discomfort aside. "Good to see you, it feels like ages," he said, leaning back slightly to look me in the eyes. He suddenly looked concerned. "You okay? You look different." I took a sharp breath, feeling like I was trying to inhale poison. "Different how?" "Better or worse?" I tried to keep my tone light, but there was a noticeable edge to it. "Well, I didn't mean." "Let's cut to the chase, shall we?" I interrupted, my heart racing as my resolve solidified. The little cafe buzz faded from my awareness. "You know why I asked you to meet me?" His brow furrowed, confusion mingling with a hint of annoyance. "Elena, this isn't like you. You're usually so easygoing. What's going on?" His mask of charm was slipping, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. I leaned in closer as the faint sounds of coffee grinding filled the void between us. "What's going on, Oliver, is that you ruined my life. You took everything that meant anything to me." The volume of my voice barely registered as a whisper, but the intensity behind it set a dangerous tone. I'm not sure what you mean," he stammered, his bravado quickly fading. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back, crossing my arms, and studied him carefully. "You lied, Oliver. You didn't just lie to me about us, you betrayed my friendship. You took my designs, my dreams, and passed them off as your own. You sold my work like it was your brilliant idea, did you?" He opened his mouth and then shut it again, realization dawning across his features like a slowly rising sun. "You can't be serious, this is about the competition?" His voice was incredulous, a mixture of disbelief and desperation clinging to every syllable. "Alina, I had no choice. You were no choice. You had every choice. You chose to deceive me." My voice rose before I could contain it, and a couple of nearby patrons glanced our way, concern etched on their faces. I took a deep breath to steady myself. Finding out from a third party that you had submitted my designs for that competition felt like a punch to the gut. You know what I poured into those concepts. You of all people should have known better. "I thought it'd be better for both of us," he tried, his eyes narrowing slightly, defensiveness rising like a tide. "You can't deny you would have struggled. You've never been good at marketing yourself, Alina. You needed someone like me. And you thought that someone like you was the one who would betray me? Strip me bare?" The pain was evident in my voice, and my heart raced deeper with every second we spent in this echo of our shared history. The memories seemed to encase us like glass, both beautiful and painfully clear. "It's not that black and white, I did this to help us." He shot back, his arrogance flaring under pressure. Besides, I thought we were done. You tossed me aside like I was nothing, and then you act surprised. No wonder you haven't made any progress. You just keep whining about it. Stop, I yelled, barely keeping my temper in check. I stood up straighter, feeling the power surging through me. I am not whining. I'm demanding acknowledgement. You took my work, you took my trust, but you can't take my spirit. I am here for retribution, and you will answer for what you did. The confidence in my voice stunned him, and for a brief moment, Oliver's mask shattered as uncertainty flickered across his features. Alina, please, I never meant to hurt you. This was supposed to be. He sighed, searching for the right words as if they might magically summon a way to escape the web he had woven. A partnership. A partnership. I scoffed, the taste of irony coating my tongue. You think a partnership involves stabbing someone in the back? No, Oliver, that is betrayal, plain and simple. With that, I leaned in, closer than ever, whispering, the fun part? I'm not here to avoid the truth. I'm here to make sure you understand the impact of your choices. My heart pulsed harder, the stakes higher as I let the moment hang between us like a loaded gun. You will pay for what you did. His eyes widened as the reality sank in, a mix of anger and fear flaring at once. What do you mean by that? I didn't flinch as I gripped the edge of the table, resolving to exploit his every fear. You have taken so much, it's time I take back what belongs to me. I've done the groundwork, used my own energy, my own thoughts to expose the truth. You will lose everything you built on my back. Wait, you can't do this, you're being irrational. He spat the words, desperation turning sharp, and I relished the way the tables had begun to turn. Rational? No one ever said revenge was rational. But it's justified when someone stepped on someone else without even considering the cost. The faint sound of a chair scraping against the floor pulled my focus momentarily, but my eyes remained locked on him, witnessing an array of emotions cross his face like an unending film reel. I thought briefly of the price of the final confrontation as his demeanor shifted from cockiness to the stark panic that churned beneath the surface. Don't do this, Alina, he murmured, the heat gone from his voice replaced with a pleading whisper. You wouldn't really ruin my life. Oh, I will, I assured him, feeling a dangerous satisfaction swell within me. I've already started. Sometimes, losing control is what leads to real freedom. I pushed away from the table and turned on my heel. As I walked toward the exit, I could feel his eyes on me, a mixture of anger, fear, and disbelief. Just before I stepped out into the warm morning air, I glanced back, knowing this was not merely the end but the beginning of something that would irrevocably change us both. Remember this moment, Oliver, I said, my voice steady, almost teasing. It will be the last time anyone ever lets you use them. The door swung shut behind me, the crack of finality echoing in the small coffee shop as I stepped into the bright sunlight. My heart raced with adrenaline. My plan was only just beginning to unfold. I made my way down the street, already plotting my next move, a smile creeping onto my lips despite the whirlwind of emotion swirling within me. I was Alina Callahan, stronger than ever, and I would no longer be just a name in a sea of forgotten faces. I was ready to reclaim my world one step at a time. The sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over Santa Fe, igniting the adobe buildings in a warm hue that felt almost ethereal. I stood in front of the front door of the sprawling ranch my father had once called home, taking in the familiar sight. The way the sunlight danced off the red clay tiles, the vibrant green of the potted plants lining the entrance, and how the air smelled of sage. But that warmth only seemed to mock me. Today was the day. The culmination of everything I had plotted, anticipated, and yes, sometimes even dreaded. I could still feel the weight of the envelope in my pocket, the final piece of the puzzle that would ignite a chain reaction in the twisted life of Brad Kessler. My heart raced as I recalled the events that brought me here. You can do this, Alina, I whispered to myself, tightening my grip around the envelope. Are you ready? My best friend Mara emerged from around the side of the house, her brows furrowed with concern. She had been my confidant through all of this, my anchor while I navigated the treacherous waters of revenge. I need to be, I replied, taking a deep breath. I am so close, Mara. He's finally going to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Anger simmered just beneath the surface, and I could almost see the heat rippling off me as I imagined the moment Brad Kessler would learn how it felt. Mara reached out and gently touched my arm. I get it, but just remember, revenge is a double-edged sword. You may think you want this, but... Her voice trailed off, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. Don't you think I've thought about that? I can't turn back now, not after what he did, I snapped, feeling a sudden surge of resentment towards her words, towards the concern in her voice. He ruined my life, Mara. He took everything from me, my family, my home, my peace of mind. I know, I just want you to be safe. You have to think this through. Her words felt heavy, like chains weighing down my resolve, yet I knew deep down that safely doing absolutely nothing was no longer an option. Safe? I echoed, raising my eyebrow. I took a tentative step back, my heart pounding faster as the adrenaline coursed through me. Mara, keeping my distance and pretending everything is okay while he walks free is no longer safe. He's still out there, he's still him. I won't let him ruin anyone else's life. I saw Mara flinch slightly at the fierceness in my voice, but I needed her to understand. Okay, but just promise me that afterward, once you've done this, you won't let it consume you. You don't want to become someone who thrives on anger, she replied, her eyes softening. I won't, I said, but I was not sure I meant it. Thriving seemed like a distant idea now, more like survival. Promise? She pressed further. I promise. Now can we please hurry? He's probably still at Cafe Castenda, I replied, shooting a glance at my watch and realizing we were cutting it close. We jogged through the familiar, dusty streets of Santa Fe, the rising sun painting our path in colors of gold and orange. Each step I took felt heavier, as if the dirt was clinging to my shoes. As we approached the cafe, a part of me screamed for caution, and another fought back with a fervent urge to unleash the pent-up fury that had simmered within me these long months. The cafe stood proud, eluding the very concept of time with its rustic charm. I could see employees opening up for the day, sweeping the porch and setting out chairs. But my focus sharpened when I spotted him almost immediately at a corner table. Brad Kessler looked as if he hadn't aged a day, with his slick back hair and that cocky smirk plastered all over his face, as if he owned the world. Rats are cunning little creatures, I thought bitterly. He's right there, Alina, Mara whispered, a note of tension laced through her voice. I nodded, unable to tear my gaze from the man who had caused me so much pain. Are you sure about this? She asked, her eyes darting from me to him and then back again. I have to do this. I pushed the door open and felt the cool air wash over me inside the cafe, making the heat of the rising sun feel far away. The scent of strong coffee mingled with the sweetness of baked pastries, creating a deceptive sense of comfort that almost sickened me. I took a deep breath and steeled myself, practically forcing my feet to move in his direction. As I approached, I could hear him laughing, thinking he was untouchable. Brad, I said, my voice calm but firm, the word hanging in the air like a single, distant thunderclap. His laughter wilted as he turned around, the moment his eyes landed on me, shifting from surprise to an unreadable expression. Alina Callahan, he said, leaning back slightly, scrutinizing me like I was a forgotten piece of furniture. To what do I owe the pleasure? Cut the act. I know why you're really here. He chuckled, crossing his arms over the table. Says the woman who took years to confront me. I had no idea I was so memorable. I fought hard to suppress the trembling in my hands, yet somehow it broke through. I have something for you, I persisted, pulling the envelope from my pocket and laying it on the table with a quiet sense of finality. Really? His smirk returned with a vengeance. Love letters? I never thought you were such a romantic. Ignoring his jab, I pressed on, choosing my words carefully. Open it. You know, you should really try working on your delivery, he replied, taking the envelope nonchalantly and tearing it open. His expression shifted to confusion as he pulled out the papers inside. What is this? Just a little something I dug up, I said defiantly, the sick thrill of watching his expression shift flickering in my heart. Do you remember your little mudslide incident in Taos? He looked puzzled. What that was, ages ago. I leaned in, fueled by the fire in my belly. The insurance fraud. You thought you could skate away with millions when you reported it all as an accident. Remember? Slowly, he began to piece it together, the confidence draining from his face. Alina, you wouldn't. Oh, but I already did. I cut him off, my voice rising with anger. I have photographs, emails, everything. Your criminal activities are all here. I enjoyed the way his face shifted from arrogance to fear, and just for a second, a flicker of triumph washed over me. I can fix this, Alina, he stammered, but it was too late. Fix it? How the hell could you think that? You thought you wouldn't get caught, I retorted, my voice cracking slightly, a mix of fury and relief but mostly pleasure. That you could ruin lives without consequence. You thought wrong. His demeanor changed completely. The cocky playboy facade was gone, replaced by something that resembled desperation. You wouldn't do this to me. We can talk this out, he pleaded, his voice low, eyes darting about as if he were searching for an escape route. I shook my head, wanting him to see the stone-cold resolve in my gaze. No more talking, Brad. You took my life from me when you decided it was okay to play God over other people's fortunes. There's a reckoning now, and you're going to answer for it. I watched as questions, dread, and vulnerability filled his eyes. You think you can just ruin me? I have connections. People I could call who would? The sound of laughter exploded from the other side of the cafe, drawing my attention. I could see a cluster of familiar faces entering, including that of my old boss, Rebecca. I had not told her what I was planning, partly because I had wanted no one involved except for Mara, but this unexpected presence was my golden ticket. Somehow they would know that this was Brad and me, but they would witness the truth unravel before them. I pointed toward the door. Look around you, Brad. You don't have connections anymore. All you have is your dwindling reputation, hollowed out by years of deceit. And soon it will all collapse. Brad's face twisted with anger, yet the shaking of his hands belied the confidence of his words. You, crack, the smattering of applause erupted as Rebecca and her crew noticed the spectacle we were creating, turning their attention toward us and catching every word. Elena. She called, grinning and striding toward us, followed by a few more eager colleagues. In that moment, I could see the walls closing in around Brad. The situation had spun out of control for him. Everything I had worked for was about to see the light of day. Rebecca, I need you to listen to me, I said, my voice steady, the weight of truth and resolution strengthening me. What's happening? She asked, her expression shifting from happiness to hesitation as she noticed Brad's mounting unease. This man is a fraud and he does not deserve to walk free. I have evidence that could destroy him, I responded, grabbing Brad's arms and pushing the envelope closer to her. Take a look for yourself. As I spoke, the unease that shrouded Brad shifted into a palpable sense of fear. You can't do this, he shouted, his voice trembling, his face flushing with anger. We had a business deal, Alina. You wouldn't dare? I can do whatever I want, I retaliated, a triumph surging within me. Suddenly, the cafe fell silent. Everyone was drawn into the revelation taking place right before them. The crowd around our table grew closer, the murmur of astonished voices fading in and out like waves crashing against the shore. It wouldn't be long before the whispers reached the authorities, and I thought about how sweet it felt to reclaim my story, to share my truth. Brad Kessler, the magician of empty promises and no substance. This is your end, I breathed, laying the evidence bare. You had your chance to be a decent person, but you wasted it. I'll ruin you. You think this is over? He shouted, the desperation in his voice mixing with a last-ditch effort at bravado, a last flash of defiance. No, Brad, you're the one whose time is over, I asserted, fixing him with a steely gaze the way a sniper would eye a target. The silence was electric. I could feel the tension crackle in the air as everyone shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what was about to explode. I turned to Mara, who stood by my side, her expression a mix of pride and fear. Are you okay? She asked softly, her eyes glistening. I am, finally, I admitted, my heart swelling. I can breathe now. As Brad turned to make his escape, I knew I had won. His bravado was exposed, just as I had wanted, and any dreams he had of future schemes hung by a thread. Chaos erupted as others finally came to grips with the revelation, and the specter of his past crimes clawed its way back into existence. Grab him? Someone shouted, perhaps one of my former colleagues, and I felt the overwhelming release of a burden lifted from my shoulders. I should have known better, Brad yelled, but the laugh that came back was sharp, triumphant, and echoed across the room. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, drawing nearer, I allowed the joy to spread through me, warming my insides like the sun creeping through the clouds. You did it, Alina. You finally did it. Mara's voice broke through the haze in my brain, pulling me back to the moment. I turned to her, the reality that I had not only taken action, but reclaimed my power washed over me like waves, filling my lungs with oxygen once more. I think this is the new dawn, I said slowly, realizing a once familiar ache had turned into something utterly fresh. And all darkness fades in the light. As the police stepped inside, I glanced back at Brad, who had finally been cornered, his facade crumbling. No, I wouldn't let him ruin my life any further. I had emerged from the shadows, and I was ready to step into the light. A new beginning awaited me, one where I could finally be free.